I am having a already powerful conversation that has been transparent, authentic, and encouraging with Dr. Marnie Aylesworth. She's sharing her story about how she was able to connect her childhood trauma to a place within her body to recognize she was walking out not her authentic self, a self that wasn't who she was meant to be. And we were just beginning to unpack the crap, as you would say.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, Marnie.
Right. So when I had this moment where I felt like I had just been super present, compassionate, non-judgmental, and realized I think that's my true self, even though I hadn't been acting that way for most of my life. I had quite a bit of judgment. I thought, there's something under here. And as I talked with my counselor, started to realize that I had created this protective shell. Because that's what you have to do when you're a child and you're experiencing any kind of trauma. You sort of build up these layers around yourself to protect you. That those layers are judgment and self-criticism, body dysmorphia, all kinds of things come with that trauma. And so I had to sort of peel all those layers back or unpack the crap from my childhood. And and it also gave me an opportunity to remember the great things I loved about my childhood, which I hadn't done for a while. When people talked about my husband, when he would talk about his wonderful childhood, I would get mad. I felt cheated. And so unpacking all of this really helped me recognize I had a wonderful childhood, with trauma, of course, but thanks to my mom, a lot of that was mitigated, to the best of her ability. She was also experiencing trauma. We all were. And so we really learned to, as I realized that this was happening, and there was a kind, compassionate, loving human being underneath all of that protection. It sort of freed me, and it made a huge impact on the way I lead people too. And I have to say, Veirdre, I have to just say the whole Crisco kid thing, because I don't want to forget about it.
Yes, I know.
Eventually,
People are just like the adventures of the Crisco kid. What does
doesn't
that mean?
doesn't make sense. But my dad, lovingly and jokingly used to call me the Crisco kid, and I thought it was because I was like a little cowgirl or something. I thought it was a great thing. I later learned when I was a teenager, it was because he was calling me fat in the can. Crisco is fat in the can, and he was calling me fat in the can. And that, believe it or not, affected me. And I know he had no malintent by saying that, but it was devastating to me. And, I'm afraid it may have led to some of my body dysmorphia, my bulimia, in college. But and so that's kind of where I think, you just because he said that and it was in kindness and not it with malintent doesn't mean you have to believe everything you hear about yourself.
And that the hook line to this episode, that second part, freeing individuals to recognize that you do not have to take on somebody else's story about you, but it's a process to let the things that stick on us and in us, it's a process to let those things go, and they impact our relationships with others. What would you say happens to your relationships when you begin that process of creating the flip and then experiencing the flip? What
Mm.
did you notice about your relationships?
Well, there two things. I noticed some people didn't like it. Yeah, they didn't recognize me, for example, or it didn't match what they expected of me. Other people were very like, yes, I've always known you like this. Like it must be a part
They
of me that
saw it.
I didn't see, but they did.
Mm,
Yes.
mm-hmm,
So two
mm-hmm.
things would happen, and it is a long process. Like I have I have two things pasted on the mirror in my bedroom that I repeat to myself every single morning. I am worthy. I am beautiful. I am fit. I am healthy. And the other thing is a bus. It's a little picture of a bus. And it's a metaphor. Essentially, I have to tell myself every time a negative thought comes into my head, whether it's judgment about somebody else or mostly judgment about myself, I have to say, I'm the driver of my bus, right? Not my thoughts. I am the driver of my bus. And when one of those thoughts get on, and I'll use a common one for me, which is, you're so fat, right? That's a thing that goes through my head all the time. When that comes into my head, I say, hello, old friend. I know you well. We've been together a long time, but you're going to sit in the back of the bus. I can't get rid of that thought. That thought is always going to be in the back of my mind, but it's to replace that thought with some more positive, affirming thoughts that I work on every single day.
You just shared a skill that actually in my own journey of meditating, I've gotten to a place where I read scripture, devotion, and meditate first thing in the morning before I put my feet on the floor, because people would be surprised, but in my past, I suffered from anger. I had a horrible temper. I was short-tempered. I was easily triggered, and I navigated just being angry and feeling like there was more that I wasn't getting, but I deserved more. And so I operated from an angry place most of the time, which also made me create walls in relationships that not only was I blocking people out, but I was keeping my authentic self in and behind that wall as well. And as I learned in the process of really meditating and getting still, that it's not trying to get rid of the thought. And that was mind-blowing to me. I'd spent so many years being upset that this thought keeps showing up. When am I going to get rid of the thought? Instead of pushing it away, pull it in close and call it what it is. I know who you are. And for me, I often say, I know who you are. I know why you're here. You served a purpose at one time, but I no longer need you. And let it go. I let you go. And recognizing that it's not just pushing it away, what you just shared, because it's a part of our story, it's a part of our memories, it's a part of our sensations, but it doesn't have to get in the driver's seat.